There will only be two types of companies in the future: companies that use AI and companies that are out of business. So that is inevitably true because you cannot compete with a company that's using AI. It'll be absolutely impossible for a real estate agent to sell a house against another real estate agent that's using AI. It'll be impossible for somebody to do research on the internet against an AI model that's doing research. And I can go down the list of what AI is going to be better at, and it's every job in the United States.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of On the Exit. I am your co-host Caleb here in the studio with Aaron. What's up, Aaron?
How's it going, Caleb? Good to be with you guys today for another episode of On the Exit.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thrilled about the guest that we have today. Andrew Amann is former military, has, patented several technologies and exited 3 businesses and now has built a lifestyle business around AI product solutions. That is just an unbelievable story and an unbelievable guest that we have the opportunity to pick his brain. He's accomplished a lot. His current business has been, I think, 5 years running on the Inc. 5000, and he's just crushing it as an AI product development studio. Andrew, man, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thanks for having me. And I do just want to clarify, because the people in the military are very strong and courageous. I was a civilian for a nuclear submarine company. So I was supporting the military.
Okay.
But I was not fighting. I was not as courageous as our military professionals are.
I appreciate that clarity. Thank you, Andrew.
No
So
problem.
speaking of that, tell us a little bit about what you did, because I know when we were chatting offline, that had a big role in shaping your entrepreneurial journey, right? Was what you did when you were working as a military contractor. So tell us a little bit about that, what the accomplishments that you had there.
Sure. So for people that I mentor or people that know me well, I think one of the things I repeat a lot is that entrepreneurship is one of the better paths I think an entrepreneur can take. There's really a journey to entrepreneurship of being risk adverse, owning your own business, and trying to figure out how to navigate all of the risks that come with that. And to get the stomach and to get the practice and the reps in, it's great to do it on somebody else's dime. And what other better place to do it for than a giant tech company or the government? And so my start in my career, I was able to work for a government. I was a government contractor for nuclear submarines, and we built nuclear submarines that only had one customer, which was the United States government. And so in doing that, you're part of a large conglomerate of people and operations and procedures and different machines and supply chains. And that entire organization taught me who's a good boss, who's a bad boss, and how I want to navigate the world as myself, as an entrepreneur, is what I believe is the best path forward for my career. And in doing that, I realized that there are opportunities inside of large businesses to be an entrepreneur, to be something that people really want to aspire to. And you can be at any age, but you have to sit around and present what you believe is right. And sometimes procedures are written in the past and they're not the best things in 2024 or 2025. And so you have to navigate what's proper, and you have to follow orders, and you have to follow the right steps. But you also have the ability to change things, and not everyone's going to listen, and you have to be patient. And so for me specifically, I presented 20 times the same idea of how to do supply chain a little bit better or a little bit differently. And by doing that, after the 20th presentation, the process of just iterating and trying to figure out how I was going to build my idea, I finally got the buy-in for that company to go forward and utilize the technology that I was presenting, because the return on investment was so good. And that process of an intrapreneur is what trained me to be an entrepreneur.
That's amazing. So what was just out of curiosity, and I'm sure our guests are curious, what was the idea that you were able to get the government to bankroll you and pay you a salary I know because we had this conversation offline, get the government to pay you a nice salary, fund your development and all that kind of stuff, and you were able to create something really cool. What was it that you created?
Yeah, so in the nuclear space, there's a lot of moving parts. There are things that are the size of cars that we build for nuclear power plants and nuclear submarines. And specifically for the company that I was working for, they were a nuclear power plant provider of what's called main steam isolation valves. And they're the size of cars. And shockingly, people would lose where they put them across the shop floor. And the shop floors are gigantic. They're the size of football fields. So misplacing one just looks like every other valve in the facility. And you just go around and you hunt for it. And it wastes a lot of time. And then in 2012 and 2013, it was very difficult to, one, find them. But two, technology wasn't as advanced as it was now. We were just starting to use mobile phones. Facebook was still starting their addictive news feed at that time. And we weren't even allowed cell phones into work. They would actually crack our cameras before we came into work because they didn't want us using cell phones at work that had cameras embedded inside of them. And so there was a lot of change going on of how to use technology in government type jobs. And so Bluetooth and Wi-Fi was still young and things that people weren't necessarily using. And so my idea was rather simple. It was putting Bluetooth chips inside of these metal parts or taped to the side of the metal parts, and then tracking them with a Wi-Fi triangulation. So I would put Wi-Fi, basically repeaters on the poles. And as a part passed through, we would triangulate where that part was on the floor. And so if somebody left it in a corner, we'd be able to go back and find it. And so it's a simple idea that took a lot of momentum to try to get put into a manufacturing shop. You don't want to disrupt everything. You don't want the shop to go to a halt because you have to install some technology. So we had to do it seamlessly. But at the end of the day, we had 7 or 8 television monitors tracking hundreds of parts across the manufacturing floor in real time. And you can imagine the workflow automations that created out of it. No longer did you have to go to the shop floor to find things. You could just go to the television screen or log in from your computer and know where every single part was in the facility in real time. And so that innovation, that technology propelled me to get 3 United States patents. 2 of them are actually verified United States, 1 still pending. But those 2 patents solidified the technology as the first Bluetooth tracking device in manufacturing.
Yeah, I like what you said about like as entrepreneurs, I love the perspective of learning things on somebody else's dime.
Right.
But like when you're not an entrepreneur, like you just think that what you're getting from them is just the pay. But that's actually not the main thing you're getting when you're working for a company. You're actually getting the infrastructure that they've set up, and you're getting all of the education and the exposure and the ability to interact with all the other people. And then those ideas, right? The pay that's not like why, like it's obviously you need the pay for bills and stuff like that. But I know for myself, I've taken jobs where, I was trying to accomplish something or trying to learn something. And then when I achieved that, then I left the job because it's like, hey, I don't need the job anymore. People are like, hey, why are you leaving the job? And it was never about the pay. It was about, I needed to learn something at this job, or I needed this job as a stepping stone to something. So I love that you said that of learning on someone else's dime and how valuable that can be. And it seems like even putting yourself in that situation was then able to like launch you into creating this product.
That's right. I think people underestimate that if you're 22 years old, the best time of your life is to figure out what your career is and what your vocation is going to be. The only way you're going to figure out is going to work for a big company. Because if you're working for yourself and you're paying yourself and you're trying to figure out basically the ins and outs of entrepreneurship at the same time of figuring out what your career is, you might not be in the right career just because you're trying to make money. But if the example of the analogy I always give is, let's say you, Caleb, came up with the greatest dog toy invention of all time. You have 2 options. You can take that dog toy yourself and try to market it and learn sales and marketing, or you can go to one of the largest toy manufacturers that produces toys for dogs and say, I would love to work for you. Tell me what the salary is, but I have an idea that'll revolutionize the dog industry. And if you take no credit from that point forward, you will learn how to manufacture dog toys, how the pricing will work, how the structure will work. You start working with individuals that have been in the industry for 50 years. And even though it was originally your idea, the final output is a dog toy that hits the market and you get to see it live with dogs using it. Most importantly, they probably have a testing facility with thousands of dogs to test dog toys with, which how much fun would it be to not have to pay for that yourself, but then go see your dog toy actually being tested and tweaked in real time. That experience sounds way more enjoyable for me than going on my own and trying to set up this entire infrastructure, never testing the toy with 1,000 dogs, putting it on the market, failing for 6 years, and then discovering that I hate dogs, right? So it just seems like the better option is to give up on the idea and go for the experience, see the results, and then determine, is this something you want to do for the rest of your life? And you'll find out for sure if you do it with the entrepreneurship way.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love the entrepreneurship mindset and everything around that. And so you did that, and then you started your own company. Tell us a little bit about that. What was your first entrepreneurial venture outside of kind of the intrapreneur Andrew? How did the intrapreneur Andrew make the transition to the entrepreneur Andrew?
Sure. So once the patents were live, my job, they basically removed me from my current role and they created a job that was not like a job that I was placed into. It was just a job I could pick the title, and I sat in my office and I would travel the world and install this patented technology into other nuclear power plants all around the world. And I was doing that for about a year and a half. And I had great advocates and great mentors that were supporting me in installing this technology. But at the end of the day, I didn't own it, and I didn't own the decisions that were being made. And as obvious as it was to me that the return on investment was so early, I wasn't able to move those manufacturing plants in a way that I wanted to install this technology. So I thought, how else can this be used? So I went to the CEO and I said, can I try to sell this to other industries? He said no about 100 times, and then he said yes. And so I went to the car manufacturing place and I was like, look, do you guys lose cars? And they're like, of course we do. And I was like, great, I have a solution for you to like not lose any cars anymore. Little did I know that like the people that come over with the boats with like 150 million cars on it and drop them off at the side of like Boston Seaport, those people, when they lose a car, just claim it in insurance and they actually don't care. And the keys aren't programmed at that time, so you can't just walk around and click and wait for the car to beep. But they actually didn't have a problem. And so I was trying to find a solution for the patented technology. And I said, I can just try this on my own, like without the company backing, use the technology in a completely different way that's not patented and use it on my own. So I thought if two people shake hands at an event, I could pass the business card information from one person to the other. And so I created a pamphlet and walked around Boston asking who would like to co-found this company with me. And my current co-founder today, his name's Pavel, found the pamphlet and said, hey, I would love to help you, but we're not doing any hardware. And I was like, all right, what do you propose instead? So we did QR codes. And for 6 years, we built the largest digital business card app that uses QR codes. We use QR codes to transfer information before it was embedded inside of the camera, which today, and anyone that's used a QR code, you just click your camera on your phone and you can get that URL from the QR code. Before that, you had to have a specific app. We were the largest business card provider in America for Android and iPhone. And so we sold that company in 2016, but it basically took us from that hardware idea that I was explaining into a software idea and then selling that software idea six years later.
That's cool. So that was, I just love the progression of the starting with the company and then developing an idea within their ecosystem and then being able to take that out and then implementing that and getting more and more exposure. Everything's a stepping stone, right? To then being like, now I'm going to go with this co-founder and then take it further and have more ownership and things like that. So
right.
Is that one of the businesses that you exited then?
That is the first one. We exited that in 2016. We sold it to a Canadian company and worked there for 2 years afterwards.
Cool.
That's awesome. And was that your plan when you started? Was your plan, I was like, we want to build this and then we want to exit it to a larger entity?
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of seasonality. And I think entrepreneurs go through 4 seasons. Your first season is the Gary Vaynerchuk season. And for everyone listening, that's an entrepreneur, you know who Gary Vaynerchuk is.
Yeah.
It's that raw, I'm going to hustle, work my face off for 6 years. I'm going to get on the cover of TechCrunch and I'm going to be the loudest entrepreneur in the room. That season was like fully about trying to get a company from 0 to 1 and selling it for millions of dollars. It didn't end up that way, but I wish it did. And at the time, I think we were nonstop believing that we could achieve that dream. But that was that season. We truly thought at that time that was our goal, to sell the company for a whole bunch of money and retire on it.
Yeah. So then you did that to a degree, right? I don't know if you hit what your desired target exit price was or whatever, but if you accomplished that season. Mm-hmm. So tell us about what was the next season and how did you know what the next right move was?
Yeah. And I jumped a season here. I think the first season's Intrapreneurship. I would repeat that to anyone. You should always start working for somebody else to learn what you like and don't like. The second season was my dipping my toe into Entrepreneurship. And so now we're in the third season. And I think the third season, as you get older, you start to have kids, you want to work in a vocation that is going to provide for your family, but also be a very enjoyable place for 10, 20, 30 years. We look at doctors' offices, car washes, dentist offices all around us. And we don't knock on their door and say, hey, there's a venture capitalist that's interested in taking you from your $3 million dentist office to a $100 million exit in 5 years. But we do that with tech entrepreneurs. And it doesn't seem fair that you can't also choose the path of just having a sustainable business in the tech space that is a holistic place for you to work. And we've provided 300 jobs now for individuals all around the world in supporting their dreams. And so we've created a culture and harnessed a place that we think is a very admirable place to work that is doing really great things for the world. And so that season is about starting that, learning EOS, getting onto an entrepreneurial system, converting it from a startup to an actual small business that has procedures and processes and a reason for being. And that whole season is, if you told me, at the beginning of the season, the only thing you have to do is call something a rock and wait 90 days to see if they come through, true, I would have said, no way, we're going to build another 14 startups. We're going to try to figure out how to build this from 0 to 1. And so you wrestle with that idea. And we ended up at that time, we built 12 startups from scratch, from 0 to 1, and released them into the world, thinking that was going to be our path forward. We thought it was better to do that than just focus on one company. And so that season is truly about finding yourself and finding what you're good at. And in our story, launching 12 companies was fun and entertaining. We lost a whole lot of money because we bootstrapped the whole thing, but it gave us the realization that what we're really good at is building products for other people. And so finally, at the end of that season, we shook hands and said, we're never building a startup from 0 to 1 again. We're only building for other people. And let's go at that with dedication and a complete focus on doing that. And that ended that season in 2020.
Yeah. And you were a pioneer in the AI ecosystem, right? The AI product development world, far before it became mainstream through ChatGPT and other LM platforms and stuff like that. Tell us a little bit about how did you get turned on to AI and artificial intelligence, right? Because it was until ChatGPT, I think anytime you said the word AI, probably 99% of the population would shiver and think of Terminator. So how was it how did you get exposed, and how did you see a way to make a positive impact on the world rather than creating Skynet? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So in 2016, my co-founder and I have known each other for a very long time. But in 2016, when we had sold the company and we were starting to build the agency at that point and working for other people, we had 3 options: blockchain or VR, which was very hot at that time, or artificial intelligence. And whether it was luck or whether it was because we started focusing on it, there was a few projects in the baby monitoring space and also in tracking which houses are going for sale in the United States that just came our way. And we got very good at tracking with infrared sensors and vision how a baby wakes up from sleep. And so that was our first jump into using AI back in 2016. And we had to build the team and the resources around building that technology. And so that led us to starting to predict which houses are being sold in the United States. And again, that's a large machine learning problem. And just to clarify here, we've been doing AI for 8 years, but not once did we call AI anything about besides machine learning. So it's time series, it was predicting models, it was all around the machine learning side of the world, even though we called it AI. Now we have to clarify and say it's either Gen AI, the ChatGPT stuff, or it's machine learning. And we do both. But back from 2016 to 2020, it was truly just machine learning. And so we started predicting houses in the United States of when they're going to go for sale. And by 2021, we had a model that was predicting with 85% accuracy, you give me a zip code, I'll tell you which house is going to go for sale in that zip code with 85% accuracy. And so that type of work, you have to build the team, you have to build the resources, and you have to figure out what are the problems companies are trying to solve. So your marketing material, the process you get in selling, how to figure out how to get a cold call all the way through to a proposal. That is a muscle that takes a lot of work, and it took it many years to perfect that. So when Gen AI and ChatGPT came out, we had the team, we had the resources, we knew how to problem solve. Now we had to recreate how to sell that idea to a $100 million organization. But the jump start, and the question you asked is why did we know or how did we know? It was really through investigating what we were going to be good at and what type of engineers we wanted to work with. VR was going to change us to the gaming industry, and we didn't want that. And crypto was going to take us down this path that was very trendy, but also, again, not really our style. AI was really the method that fit best with us and also fit best with our culture and our engineers.
So it really was just about aligning with who you were and who you wanted to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly right.
And that seems like the theme of your entire entrepreneurial thesis, right? Is even from the intrapreneur all the way through to where you're at now, running this baller AI product studio, is really just aligning what you do with who you are so that you're able to go to work every day on something that you have a passion to continue to get great at,
Yep.
but that's also fulfilling and life-giving, and it integrates well into the actual life that you want to live,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
go ahead.
go ahead. I was just going to say on that, I think there's a path that seems very feasible there that, yes, it's a journey that like seems like it's a building block from one step to the other. But I think the other part is the mental state of how hard it truly is to go as an entrepreneur with so much risk and trying to figure out like what is the right thing to do for the business without having the help. And what I think the most challenging thing in all this is figuring out the mental space to know that you're in the right direction and know that the people that are working for you really enjoy you. Because I wasn't a good person from 2018 to 2020 when we built 14 companies. It was hard, it was challenging, it was difficult. The people that worked for us wasn't exactly like happy that we were doing 14 companies and my time wasn't spent with them when they could have been doing something else. There was a lot of learning that needed to be happen. So only in the last few years is the mental side of it balanced finally with the journey of an entrepreneur, the correct journey.
Yeah. Wow. So you were just on those 14 companies. So are these like products, or what do you mean by 14 companies?
Yeah. So we were running an agency, and you have developers and resources that work for the agency. And there's a bench. There's people that are just, sometimes they don't have a client to work on. And to constantly have this bench, and you're always like, what can I do with them? Tendency that agencies have is to start a product from scratch because it would be nice to have recurring income instead of chunky consulting income. And so a lot of agencies fall into the trap of building products from scratch. And so we did 14 of those. One of them was Inigo, the digital business card one. So that would be the 13th. And then the company that bought us would be the second and third one. So we built about 11 or 12 of them just as our own agency.
Yeah.
But that tendency to build because you have excess is very aspiring. The hard part is the product marketing and sales. If you don't have that figured out and you don't have a community to sell into, if you don't have a sales team already solidified, people want to build $1 million product, but you need a $500,000 CEO, which probably means you need $2.5 million to support a $500,000 CEO with all the other costs of the businesses. We were trying to like reduce everything to a miniature scale. You know, we can get somebody for $40,000. Maybe they'll run it to make sure we can get $10,000 a month. And when you miniaturize it, you don't have the scales or the margins to really support a product, even if it was the best idea in the world. We don't have the sales and marketing to bring it to the attention of others to buy this product. So yeah, we created 12 companies. One of them is on the market today as the final one, but like they never returned the effort that we put into those products. And because we bootstrapped it, we didn't live on debt.
Yeah, so that's why you like building for other people now.
It's much more profitable.
Let them do the sales side of it.
Yeah, and like the sale, and it allows you to take shots on goal that are aspirational. Like one of our largest clients is Consumer Reports. We never would have built a 90-year-old vector database of all the information that ever existed on washing machines and dishwashers and all the stuff that they have in their database. We never would have been given the opportunity to collaborate with them or figure out how to do this if we weren't an agency building for other people. And I can say that about all of our clients. We've been given such a privilege and an opportunity to release something to hundreds of thousands of users or 1 million users, whatever their audience is. And so we can build at that scale. And as long as, like I said from the beginning, we don't take the credit, we let them take the credit, and we're good with that, and we can give up on our ego, you can build much better, bigger, larger, more aspirational things because you're giving up the credit, but you get to be a part of the story. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So as you've been building these, tell us about one. Give us an example of an AI product that your team developed that's had a transformative impact on the client's operations, the client's bottom line, whatever that may be.
Yeah, I have a few of my favorite ones that I go through. The fun ones are the ones that of companies you've never heard of before that are basically asking us to do a 6-figure build, a technology build around some idea or some workflow. And by the time we release it, we're seeing millions of dollars of saved money in their organization. And so one great example I'll give is there's an insurance company that came to us that had salespeople. They were half-hour calls every day. So they were doing 16 calls a day. Of those 16 calls, 6, 7, or 8 of them were valid sales calls, people that wanted life insurance or car insurance or health insurance, whatever they were selling at the time. And the other 5 to 6 to 7 were just waste. We've done this before. We click on a button, we set up a call, and then we just don't show up because it's some random company and we have 3 other ones. And so you just don't show up. So our job, our mission as an AI solution was to create a product that would validate the individuals on the percentage that they would show up to the phone call. And so we created a model that had, I think it was about 15 large language model requests, and we call them agents now, but before people called agents, we were building these miniaturized large language model mission critical ideas. And so one of them was like, the only job of this agent was to close a deal. We had another agent whose only job was to keep the conversation going. There was another agent whose job was he knew all the products. And whenever a product question was asked, the orchestration would go over to that agent and say, can you give me information about this product? And so we created these 15 or so agents. And when the conversation started inside of the chat, a specific agent would retrieve the request and answer properly. And at the end of the day, we were just rating them on a scale of 1 to 10. How valuable is this lead? And what is the percentage that this lead is going to show up for the phone call when the human sets up the actual meeting? And what happened is we increased revenue per employee. And we did that because we didn't replace any of the salespeople. We didn't reduce the salespeople. We simply filled up those 16 slots to as close to as 100% as possible. And so this AI model, it's a 6-figure investment, returned millions of dollars per year because all it did was create new product offerings, or basically the same products they were selling, new opportunities to more people that were actually qualified. And so that's a great investment by that company because you're guaranteed more revenue and you don't have to hire anybody.
Yeah, so that's an example of a really cool example of building for someone else, right? Because what would you have done with that? Tried to go sell it to someone, but you were able to tailor it to them and everything too, right?
Exactly. AI, the mistake that people are making in AI is the products that are being built right now are tailored to the masses, just like ChatGPT. And ChatGPT, we can go on, is not a product. ChatGPT is a cool feature for other products. And it only works when it's coded correctly for that product. And what I mean by that is like you are a real estate agent and you use ChatGPT. After a while, the prompts, the knowledge, the resources that you give it are going to be very particular to your real estate industry tendencies. It'll also be very similar to your state and the laws in that state. And maybe Massachusetts can sell a house a little bit differently than Texas. And so if you think of a person that was trained in Massachusetts as a real estate agent, and you're taking that knowledge and putting it into an AI, after a year or 2 years of selling houses, that model is going to be horrible for Texas because they have different laws, different rules, and different tendencies, maybe different cadence, maybe different like time schedules. Maybe like you can't do something in Texas that you can do in Massachusetts. But that entire model now has to be retrained in Texas for another agent in Texas that's used to selling there. So the biggest mistake I see in AI right now is there is no product built on ChatGPT that can just be deployed to anyone that signs up for a monthly fee. You have to customize and train it on your data, your culture, and your knowledge. And that's what agencies like ourselves have been so good at, is we can take that knowledge base and relate it to your culture, your values, and your processes, so that when you deploy this, you're not deploying an AI model. You're taking your best employee and saying, I just want 100 of these people, and everyone else can train out of this best employee. So if they have a question, they no longer need to bother me or the best employee. They just bother this model, and it will give the right answer because I trained it on our culture. And that is why the companies that are using us are seeing, 10x, even 100x returns. And the companies that are using like ChatGPT glorified with a little product wrapper are getting frustrated.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely true. And it's also, I know a lot of people, like we're in the real estate investment world, and I interact with a lot of folks, and they're all leveraging ChatGPT for various different things, whether it's internal staff training, manuals, operations, whatever it is. But it's a lot of, you have no idea how to leverage the tech. You don't really understand. You're just watching YouTube videos or whatever, trying to train your own GPT to answer internal questions, trying to train your own GPT to do external things. And it's just like, one, even if you get it right, how many hours did you have to spend learning how to do something and then doing it, versus actually just having a product that is specific to your industry, your company, answers the right questions, does it. I see a tremendous amount of value in what you do in the space that we're in, even because it's very appealing For me, for example, we work with investors all the time to have the ability for an investor to get a lot of their baseline questions and stuff answered before they ever end up on a call with me, so that the intent when they're on a call with me or one of my sales team, the intent is there, right? And I'm not spending time sitting on 15 calls a week and my sales guys are on 15 calls a week or whatever with investors answering basic questions that could have been filtered out through AI way prior. So talk to me a little bit about how, the I guess the future of business operations, of strategy, of those kind of things. Where do you see what you do in AI? Where do you see it going?
Yeah, I think the mistake that people make is SaaS has ruined software. The idea of renting software monthly makes us think that for $10 a month, we can get a software tool to do X, Y, and Z. And the habit that I think a lot of people have is they pay for HubSpot or Salesforce on a monthly basis, and they think, great, I just want to pay AI monthly. What you just explained and what I think people need to start thinking about is AI is an employee. AI is hiring somebody for $100,000 into a job to not replace that job, but to enhance the other people that are working at that job. And so it's an assistant. It's the same way in the interview process that you would go through when hiring an employee. And that AI model should be able to be deployed alongside the other employees and work with them. And so in the future, I think Microsoft's coming out with what they call Microsoft Recall, I think is the right word. And it's going to be on every computer that is using Microsoft Office 365. And Google's coming out with Gemini, and I would say they're coming out with Gemini because even though it's released, it's like the worst release in the history of technology. And Apple one day will come out with Siri. I don't have any idea if they're ever integrating ChatGPT into Siri or like when it's happening, but they keep claiming that they're going to have large language models on their phones too. But let's say in a year, everybody figures this out, right? Microsoft actually puts it on Office 365, Gemini works correctly, finally, and Apple joins the game. What you immediately have is a unified search bar to the internet. And we've never had this before. We've always had to log into our devices. And we as the humans know the differentiator that like, Caleb, you might use Amazon and I use Etsy. Therefore, if like somebody stole my computer, they would be searching Amazon to find out what my purchases were and there'd be nothing there. The only way that my information is shared right now between Microsoft, Google, Amazon, Etsy, any of that is through my knowledge or my devices. So if the apps are separated, there's no way for those databases to interact with each other. But if I bring all of that information into one search bar on my phone, on my laptop, whatever it happens to be, and I'm now using the voice assistant or the keyboard to ask one question to get the answer from any of my apps or any of my knowledge that has existed, I therefore am creating this one unified place where all of my content, text messages, conversations live. And this is what the AI assistant, this is what every tech company is racing towards. Who's going to own the AI assistant that lives on every device in the pocket or on the laptop? That is coming quickly. And that is why every company is bidding for GPUs and the largest model, because it is going to be a race of which model performs better. And it's also going to be which one is more secure. And to do that, you need a whole lot of energy and a whole lot of processing power to make sure that both of those exist. So we're taking this all the way back to this idea that an AI assistant lives on every device. That AI assistant is then going to be my buddy. It's going to know about me. It's going to know my tendencies. It's going to be able to predict everything that I do better than I do. And it's going to know my calendar. It's going to know my schedule. It's going to know my work. In the office, in Office 365, that's going to be shared with all the other employees. And so you can, as a company, know your tendencies of your employees. You'll have better culture fits. You'll know if they're heading in the right direction or the wrong direction sooner. All of those signals are going to be very actionable because that AI assistant is going to live on their laptop or on their phone when they're logged into their work environment. And we're racing there. So by 2025, this will exist. It exists in Google Gemini, but everyone that's used that product is frustrated with it. So as we get this on our device, we're now going to have to figure out as a society, how do these AI assistants work with other assistants? If I need to order an Uber for my wife, I should be able to do that, not with her, but with her AI assistant. If I need to schedule a birthday party, like you can start seeing that movie Her is like a great analogy to this, but you can start seeing that if all these AI assistants work for all of these humans, how do we start interacting with those? And that's where the world is heading by 2025 and 2026 is this mishmash of humans and agents working together on the internet.
Wow.
Super cool, man.
It's super
It's
cool,
a
but
really
also
neat-
you can
neat
understand
vision.
why
People are
people
concerned.
are a little bit weirded out by it. I think people are starting to understand, like they're seeing obviously the significant amount of value, but there's always the question in the back of the mind, at what cost? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what do you see, obviously being an expert in this field, what do you see as the potential dangers and risks of all of the different AI implementations?
The potential and risk is what Google and Apple are doing specifically right now, is because they have the hardware, they're just adding the software. And they will own that search result, right? Because the search result will go through their hardware. What needs to happen, I believe, very quickly is ChatGPT needs to come out with a phone because they're not going to be able to compete otherwise. And on top of that, Perplexity and Claude needs to partner with somebody that we can trust, those companies being a private, non-giant tech company. And if that's true, I don't mind paying Perplexity $20 a month or Claude $50 a month to keep my tokens and my queries outside of the tech giants' hands. It would also be great too if I can go on Hugging Face, which is a website that shows you all the top large language models, and download a local large language model to my phone that keeps everything on my phone and doesn't go out to the world.
Yeah.
And so there's the tech giant race that's happening. And I think as society, we need the governments to step in and figure out what is allowed and what is not allowed from a privacy standpoint. Because as we're finding out very quickly from Elon Musk, there's a lot of censorship happening on the social media networks.
Yeah.
But how much censorship is happening on these AI models? And then on top of that, if I truly have my own AI model, do I have full ownership of that? And we need to figure that out. If I do have full ownership, I should be able to turn off and on certain things, just like I do with my current phone when it's accessing applications. Do not share my contacts with this company. Do not share my photos with this company. We don't even have that infrastructure yet. Wow. And fast forward 50 years, AI is going to be like electricity. You're just going to buy a piece of software or device or hardware, and AI is going to be built into it, just like when you buy a device, electricity is built into it. Right? Yeah. The battery, the things you plug into your house, all of that is built into the technology infrastructure. And there's also an entire infrastructure of what it took to build electricity to get it to my house that needs to be done with AI. So we need the nuclear power plants turned on. We need to figure out how to distribute power to all of these devices. And then we need to put all of these these checkpoints in place to keep it secure and to allow us to interact with it without worrying about our data being leaked.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
That's super good insight. And I hope that all of those things do happen. All of those protective measures for sure.
Hey, Andrew, what advice would you give to a new business, new entrepreneur? Let's say you're newer, I don't know, you're making $1 million in revenue or something. At what point do you start to implement? Because I like what you're saying about it. It complements and integrates in with your existing human employees. I guess at what point should someone look at that everyone's using it just a bit, like ChatGPT and stuff like that. But I'm talking about in a more focused way, whether it's a product built for your company, or how should people be thinking about that, new companies or startups or things too. If you're something that like, hey, I'm thinking about our company. It's, hey, let's say we want to do this for the next 10 years. What steps should we be taking now with a company that's only been around for, I don't know, 4 years or something like that, to be set up with this, right?
Yeah, there will only be two types of companies in the future: companies that use AI and companies that are out of business. So that is inevitably true because you cannot compete with a company that's using AI. It'll be absolutely impossible to compete with somebody that has agents being deployed at the speed of which they can be gathering information, retrieving information, and doing work. It'll be absolutely impossible for a real estate agent to sell a house against another real estate agent that's using AI. It'll be impossible for somebody to do research on the internet against an AI model that's doing research. And I can go down the list of what AI is going to be better at, and it's every job in the United States. And so why that's important is that you need to not incorporate AI. You need to figure out how AI can produce revenue for you. What is the low-hanging fruit right now that you can incorporate into your business that starts incorporating the knowledge base of what you know into a model that can assist the other people in your company? Every company has a hierarchical structure of knowledge. There's that person in the company that can do everything and knows everything and everybody goes to. For us, that person's Tanya. But for every company, there's that name of that person. And you can list that person in your company that if there's an issue, you go to that person and they answer the question. How do you get that knowledge into a model so that no longer is that person's time spent answering other people in the company's questions, but the model is? Once you do that, you now have the beginning of your culture, your knowledge base, your values, and all of the stuff you've acquired as a company, which is an asset and why you're competitive right now. And now you can focus on other things, revenue driving things, cost cutting things. You can lower your prices because you no longer need to spend as much time as you did in the past. And you can start beating your competitors at speed and price. There's a pie for every industry. Let's say you're in an industry with 33% ownership and you have two competitors with 33% ownership. I can guarantee you the one that installed AI today is going to have more percentage of that pie every single year that the other companies don't start. And so the knowledge base is where you should start putting the information, figuring out how your company's entire brain works in one place. Ask it questions, train it, make sure it works, make sure it gives you the right answer at the right time. It knows about your invoices, your checking, your balancing. Like every single thing in your company should eventually be in this knowledge base. Then you protect that, and that's your asset for the next 10 years. But every business should be starting with that knowledge base.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's similar to how, like in the past, like with processes that are documented and everything that are written, where those are part of your intellectual property, where this actually forms part of your company value and assets.
Yeah, it's why you exist. Your values, your culture, and your asset. And it's why people work for you. And your humans are still going to work for these companies. They're still going to be enjoying working for a company that has an AI model built into it. But you exist and you created a company because people like that culture and that value. So you just got to emphasize that.
Yeah. Man, I feel like I just have so many more questions. I want to talk to you more, but we're getting to the end of the show here. So maybe we'll have a part 2 at some point in the future. It would be great. But at the end of every episode, we just like asking every entrepreneur that we talk to the same 5 questions. We love getting these answers. And so we're just going to dive in. We call it the exit round. Andrew, what's your all-time favorite business book?
Right now, it's The Alchemist. 4th year in a row reading it consistently at the same time every year. And I learned something new from that book every year about who I am as a person.
Fantastic, man.
Andrew, what percentage of your current income is fully passive?
10%.
Awesome.
Great.
It's better than most, right? What's one thing you wish you could do more of, but your business commitments hold you back?
I would say I could have answered that question all the way up until this year. This year has been just a wonderful year with my business, with my family, with my team. I am living on top of the world right now with the balance that I have of how much time I spend with the kids, my wife, my family. And I couldn't ask for more. But in the past, I would have given up the amount of work that I did to hang out with the kids. But then again, I don't think I'd be in a place that I am today with how much time I can split between and how much we travel and just enjoy each other.
That's awesome, man. I love that.
Thank you.
If you could go back in time, what advice would you give your former self about building a business? Find
People that are fans of you early. It took me 35 years of my life, but it also took me I've been in business now as an entrepreneur for 12 years, up until 2020. So only for the last 4 years, it took me 8 years to find people that would celebrate me, give me affirmations, tell me that I'm on the right path. I got a business coach that actually knows when I'm through pain and how to get me out of pain by telling me that we're doing something good for the world. To get like good people that care about me, that's something I didn't have early on. I didn't have people that I could call when stuff went wrong or we almost went bankrupt. Like I didn't have that system. And once I got that system, we took off. Like my company took off, my family took off, my kids took off. Like every single thing worked better once I found a support system of people that are like me that I could call up when I could cry to them and say, look, this is what's going on. And all they did was listen. And then a few days later, they say, Andrew, you got this. We love you, man. You're good at what you do. You got this. And that's all I needed. I wish I had that 10 years ago.
Oh, man. That's such a great answer to that. I think it's absolutely critical, man. So what's obviously, I feel like you have achieved this kind of time freedom, financial freedom kind of thing. Give us your strategy, like some strategic tips for folks that are on that journey and would love to be on top of the world, like where you are, where you've got that work-life balance, you get to spend the optimal amount of time with the ones that you love and care about. Like that's the entrepreneurial dream. And it seems in many ways you've been able to achieve that. What kind of strategic tips would you give folks that have that same dream in mind?
Yeah, there's a few conversations. There's a few conversations that I've had with entrepreneurs that are billionaires. And the things that it made me realize was I've had enough and I don't need to continue going down the path of a billionaire. I think that's the biggest transition that I had in 2020 and 2021 when I started having those conversations with people that I just aspired to. I realized that wasn't my journey. My journey was to be holistic, to be a balanced individual, and to build a company in which the people that I worked for, I get to spend more time with than the people that I haven't worked for yet. And that statement alone meant a lot to me because most individuals that I meet that are hustlers are still dreaming of the people that they are going to work for, or the people that they're going to meet, or the people they're going to become. In 2024, I finally became the person that I aspired to all of these years. And the people that I work for, or the people that work for me, are the people that I aspired to all this whole time. And realizing that made me realize that it's enough. And so the new clients we're getting are fantastic. The people that work at this company, I could hang out with them for the rest of my life. That balance means that I don't need to keep chasing the venture capital tech crunch dream. I just need to continue giving time to the people that are in the company and the clients that we currently have. It's so hard to say that out loud and realize that because every company, every entrepreneur, every person I've ever met that hasn't realized that is still chasing a dream that they haven't achieved yet. And I think that's why we're entrepreneurs. So it's almost like you're giving up the entrepreneurship chip. Good, hard sentence to say. You're giving up that chip in balance of enough's enough. And when you realize that, you start to actually get more abundant opportunities because you figured out who you are. If you don't realize that, you're always chasing and you're actually missing out on things.
Wow. Yeah, that resonates.
It's good, man.
Absolutely, man. This has been such a great conversation, Andrew. I definitely want to stay in touch and just continue learning from you. How does our audience connect with you? How can, whether they want product solutions or just want to connect with you and learn more about you, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
Sure. So every Sunday night I sit down and write, and content goes out on LinkedIn. So you can follow me on LinkedIn. I actually do read the messages on LinkedIn, even though there's a lot of spam there. So you can reach out there. That's an easy way to get a hold of me. My company is 923. You can find us 923.co. But honestly, LinkedIn is the place to find the news and the updates about what we're up to.
Awesome. That's great. So everybody listening, hit up Andrew Amann, Amann on LinkedIn and continue to learn from the well of entrepreneurial wisdom that is Andrew Amann. Man, we really appreciate you
man. Yeah.
being on the show, and definitely look forward to more conversations in the future.
Sounds good. This was a pleasure. This was a lot of fun for the hours. So thanks for having me, and I'll be glad to be back whenever you send it my way. I'll be in.
Excellent. Thanks, Andrew.
Yep. Thanks.
Hey, thanks everybody for joining us for another episode of Own the Exit. Go ahead and subscribe on YouTube, leave us a review, and share this with anybody that you think would receive value from it. It helps us get the word out and helps more people, entrepreneurs who are on the journey, learn more about how they can define and own their exit. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.